Ever get that feeling? You know, that one where you're doing everything right, working hard, playing by the rules, but somehow financial freedom still feels like a distant dream?
Yeah, like you're on a treadmill going nowhere.
Exactly. Putting in all the effort, but not really getting ahead. It makes you wonder if maybe there's a different path, one we're not always told about.
A different kind of hustle.
Right. And today we're going to explore that path. We're diving deep into the ideas behind Cody Sanchez's book, Main Street Millionaire. It's all about building real wealth, not through some flashy tech startup, but by buying profitable businesses that are already up and running.
What some might call boring businesses.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of businesses we see every day, but maybe don't think of as huge wealth-building opportunities.
Like, think about someone like Wayne Huizenga.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The guy who built Waste Management, AutoNation, Blockbuster. Not exactly a Silicon Valley whiz kid, right?
No, not at all. But he saw the potential in businesses that were already out there meeting real needs. He didn't invent some new gadget. He just took these existing businesses and figured out how to acquire them and scale them up.
Which is exactly what this book is all about. So in this deep dive, we're going to break down the core arguments of Main Street Millionaire. We'll explore how everyday people can achieve financial independence through this often ignored path to wealth.
Because the traditional path, let's face it, can leave many people feeling stuck.
Yeah, trading time for money, working for someone else's dream.
And Sanchez really challenges that conventional wisdom. She starts by pointing out that most of us are kind of programmed to think that a regular job is the only way to achieve financial security. We're taught to work hard, climb the corporate ladder, and hopefully retire comfortably someday.
But what if that's not the whole story? What if there's another way, one that gives you more control over your time and your income potential?
That's what Sanchez argues. She says true financial freedom isn't about earning a steady paycheck. It's about owning assets that generate cash flow. Specifically, owning businesses.
So instead of relying on a salary, you own a piece of something that's producing real value and bringing in money even when you're not punching a clock.
And for anyone who's felt stuck in the 9-to-5 grind, this is a really powerful idea.
Absolutely. If you've ever felt limited by your job or frustrated by the lack of control over your financial future, then this deep dive is for you.
We're going to show you a tangible alternative, a path that doesn't require $1 million inheritance or some brilliant invention.
It's about recognizing the potential that's right in front of us in those everyday businesses that we often overlook.
The Main Street businesses.
Okay, so let's talk about those. What exactly are we talking about when we say Main Street businesses?
Well, think about the businesses you see in your own neighborhood. The local car wash, the laundromat down the street, even the vending machines in your office building.
Okay, those are Main Street businesses.
Exactly. These are the small, often family-run businesses that provide essential products and services that people need day in and day out.
So we're talking about things like car washes, laundromats, vending machines.
Yep, and Sanchez lists a bunch more. Storage centers, repair shops, landscaping companies, electrical contractors, even portable toilet rentals.
Okay, portable toilets, maybe not the most glamorous business. But the point is they're everywhere.
And they're vital. People need these services. And because they're often overlooked, there's less competition for them.
You know, it's funny, there's this quote in the book that really stuck with me. Jim Bowen, the CEO of First Trust, said, "While the rest of the world laughs at dry cleaning, we make millions."
It's so true. We tend to get caught up in the hype of the latest trends, but often the real money is being made in those unsexy but essential businesses.
And the reason there's less competition is everyone's chasing the next big thing, the high-growth, high-profile companies.
Leaving this whole landscape of profitable Main Street businesses ripe for the picking.
So if you're looking for a path to wealth that's less crowded and maybe a little less glamorous, this is it.
Now, to help you navigate this path, Sanchez lays out her RICH method, a step-by-step framework for acquiring and scaling Main Street businesses.
Okay, break down that RICH method for us.
So it starts with R for results. And this is all about buying businesses that are already producing positive cash flow. You're not starting from scratch. You're stepping into an established operation that's already generating revenue.
Got it. So you're not taking on a risky startup, you're buying a proven business.
Right. Then there's I for invest, which is about the strategic actions you need to take to actually become an owner. It covers things like finding the right businesses, negotiating deals, and securing financing.
So it's about turning the idea of buying a business into a reality.
Exactly. Then we have C for command. This is where you learn how to build a team and delegate responsibility. You don't want to be stuck working in the business. You want to be working on the business.
So finding a competent manager or operator to handle the day-to-day operations.
That's key. And finally, H for harness, which is all about managing multiple businesses and potentially creating a passive income stream.
So once you've got one business running smoothly, you can start to acquire more and build a portfolio.
Exactly. That's the ultimate goal, to create a system where your businesses are working for you, not the other way around.
Now, I know the book dives into different levels of business acquisition. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Sanchez breaks down the process into different levels, recognizing that acquiring a small laundromat is a very different experience from buying a large manufacturing company.
Right, it's different levels of complexity and investment.
Exactly. So for our deep dive today, let's focus on level 1 and level 2 acquisitions, which are where many people start on this journey.
Okay, sounds good. So what are level 1 businesses like?
Level 1 businesses are usually smaller operations. Things like individual laundromats, vending machine routes, small service businesses like a landscaping company or a cleaning service.
And what kind of investment are we talking about?
To acquire a level 1 business, you'd typically be looking at under $1 million. And these businesses often generate under $300,000 in annual revenue.
Okay, and what about the profit? What can an owner realistically expect to take home from a level 1 business?
Well, it varies, but it could range from $50,000 to $200,000 in profit per year.
Not bad.
And importantly, the time commitment for the owner is usually pretty manageable. We're talking maybe 10 to 30 hours per week.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a complete replacement for a full-time job right away.
Right. But it's a solid foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you the flexibility to build from there.
So what about level 2 businesses?
Level 2 businesses are a step up in terms of scale and complexity. The acquisition cost is usually under $10 million, and they typically generate between $3 and $10 million in annual revenue.
So a significant jump from level 1.
Yeah. And the potential profits are also much higher, anywhere from $1 to $5 million per year.
Wow, that's serious money.
It is. But level 2 businesses often require more management experience, and the operational complexity can be greater. Although, you might be acquiring a business that already has a solid management team in place.
So you might not need to be as hands-on as you would with a level 1 business.
Exactly. Now, before you even start browsing businesses for sale, Sanchez stresses the importance of self-assessment. It's not just about finding a profitable business, it's about finding the right profitable business for you.
Okay, that makes sense. You need to figure out what kind of business aligns with your skills and your goals.
Exactly. And she talks about identifying your zone of genius. She gives this example of a guy named John who enjoys building things like helping his community and has a knack for logistics leadership and technology.
And so based on those interests and skills, she suggests he consider acquiring a plumbing company.
Right, because it aligns with his natural strengths and passions. It's like that Venn diagram where you look at what you're good at, what you enjoy, and who you know.
And she cautions against chasing businesses that look good on paper but fall outside your zone of genius.
Yeah, she gives the example of someone who's a big picture thinker, great at strategy, but hates dealing with details.
And maybe they stumble upon a manufacturing company with impressive numbers, but the day-to-day reality of running that business would be a nightmare for them.
Right, because they'd be constantly dealing with tasks and decisions that drain their energy and don't play to their strengths.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about finding a business that you can actually see yourself running and enjoying.
Absolutely. And the next step in defining your acquisition criteria is to figure out your ideal owner experience.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It means determining how involved you want to be in the day-to-day operations of the business. Do you want to be the hands-on CEO making all the decisions? Or do you want to take a more passive role and delegate most of the responsibility?
So it's about figuring out your desired level of involvement.
Right, because some people thrive on being in the thick of things, while others prefer to set the overall strategy and let someone else handle the details.
And knowing that up front will help you narrow down your search to businesses that fit your ideal lifestyle.
Exactly. And finally, you need to define your deal box. This is where you get specific about the financial parameters and other key criteria for your acquisition.
So things like your minimum profit requirements, your preferred location, the types of businesses you're interested in.
Right. Sanchez stresses the importance of starting with a narrow focus. Don't try to buy every type of business under the sun.
Stick to what you understand, stick to what aligns with your zone of genius.
Exactly. Now, once you've got a clear picture of what you're looking for, the next step is actually finding potential businesses to buy, and identifying motivated sellers.
Okay, so where do you even begin?
Well, Sanchez talks about brainstorming boring businesses in your community. Just start thinking about all the essential services and products that people rely on every day.
So just look around your neighborhood and see what businesses are already thriving.
Exactly. And she also suggests something called the walking billboard strategy.
Okay, what's that?
It's simply letting your network know that you're actively looking to buy a business. You never know who might have a connection to someone who's thinking about selling.
Right. It's all about putting the word out there.
Exactly. And the book outlines 7 specific strategies for finding motivated sellers. One is to connect with what she calls the 4A Club.
Okay, who are the 4A's?
Your accountant, your attorney, your agent, and your advisor. These professionals often have insights into businesses that might be up for sale.
Makes sense. They're dealing with business owners all the time.
Exactly. And another really interesting strategy is to look at your own service providers.
Okay, so the people who cut your lawn, clean your house, fix your plumbing.
Yep. These are often small business owners themselves, and they might be at a point where they're ready to exit their business.
Interesting. So it's like turning your everyday interactions into potential business opportunities.
Exactly. And Sanchez even shares this idea called the Venmo Challenge, which is basically offering to help a service provider grow their business in exchange for a percentage of the increased profits.
So you're basically using your skills and expertise to help them scale up, and you get a piece of the action.
Right. It's a way to get involved with a business without a huge upfront investment.
Now, once you've identified some potential businesses, how do you go about evaluating whether they're actually good opportunities?
Well, Sanchez introduces 2 helpful frameworks for this, SOWS and BRRT.
Okay, break those down for us.
So SOWS stands for stale old, weak, and simple. It's a way to identify promising businesses that might have hidden potential.
Okay, so stale businesses are those that haven't kept up with the times. They might be using outdated technology or relying on manual processes.
Right. And old businesses have been around for a while, ideally more than 5 years. This suggests they're relatively stable and have roots in the community.
Okay, and what about weak?
Weak doesn't mean the business is failing. It just means the competition isn't very strong. There might be room for a new owner to come in and shake things up.
Okay, I get it. And simple means the business model is easy to understand. It's not overly complex or technologically sophisticated.
Right. So basically, you're looking for businesses that are ripe for improvement. They might be a little stale, a little behind the times, but they have a solid foundation and there's room for growth.
And what about BRRT? What does that framework help you assess?
BRRT stands for Buy, Resist, Raise, and Tech. And it's all about evaluating a business's upside potential.
Okay, so buy means you're looking for businesses that are already generating consistent cash flow.
Right. Ideally, cash flow that's somewhat predictable.
And resist means the business can withstand economic downturns. It's not overly vulnerable to recessions or market fluctuations.
Exactly. Then we have Raise, which means there's potential to increase prices without losing customers.
Okay, so there's room to improve profitability.
Right. And finally, Tech, which means there are opportunities to leverage technology to improve efficiency, reach new customers, or enhance the customer experience.
So basically, you're looking for businesses that have a solid foundation, but also have the potential for growth and optimization.
Exactly. Now, even with these seemingly straightforward businesses, Sanchez emphasizes the importance of thorough due diligence.
Yeah, you can't just take the seller's word for it. You need to do your homework.
Absolutely. And she tells this story about a big financial loss she took on a cannabis company deal because she didn't dig deep enough.
So it's a reminder that even seemingly great deals can have hidden risks.
Right. And thorough due diligence involves a lot more than just glancing at the financials. You need to look at things like seller discretionary earnings, or SDE.
Okay, what's that?
SDE is basically the total financial benefit a single owner-operator could expect to receive from the business. It's a way to assess the true profitability of the business.
Okay, that makes sense.
And for businesses with significant real estate assets, you also want to look at the cap rate.
Cap rate.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's basically the rate of return on a real estate investment property based on its expected income.
Okay, so it helps you evaluate the value of the real estate associated with the business.
Right. And you also need to be on the lookout for red flags. Things like discrepancies between reported income and tax returns, consistently bad online reviews, a seller who's rushing the deal, or an inability to scale the business.
So you're looking for any signs that something might not be quite right.
Exactly. Now, assuming you've found a promising business, done your due diligence, and you're ready to move forward, the next big question is financing.
Right. How are you actually going to pay for this acquisition?
Well, there are a lot of options beyond just going to a bank and getting a traditional loan.
Okay. Like what?
Well, one option is seller financing, where the current owner of the business essentially becomes the bank.
So they finance the purchase themselves.
Exactly. And this can be a win-win for both parties. The seller might get a higher selling price, and you as the buyer might get more favorable terms.
Interesting.
And seller financing can also have tax advantages for the seller. Sanchez even shares her own experience of buying her first laundromat using seller financing.
So it's definitely something worth exploring.
Absolutely. Now, another option is an SBA loan.
SBA loans, those are the government-backed loans for small businesses, right?
Exactly. And they can be a great option for business acquisitions because they often come with lower down payment requirements and longer repayment terms.
So they can make buying a business more accessible.
Exactly. Now, Sanchez also talks about the possibility of acquiring a business for little to no money up front.
Wait, hold on. Is that even possible?
Well, it's not some magical get-rich-quick scheme, but there are some creative strategies.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
One strategy is to repurpose the customer base of a business that's about to close down.
So you're basically acquiring customers without having to pay for marketing.
Exactly. Sanchez gives this example of a woman who opened a gym and offered to take over the memberships of other gyms that were closing in her area.
Smart move.
Yeah, and she also talks about revenue-sharing acquisitions, where you pay the previous owner a percentage of the revenue you generate from their former customers.
Okay, interesting. And what was that other strategy you mentioned?
Acqui-hiring.
Acqui-hiring.
Yeah, it's basically acquiring a business primarily for its talented employees.
So you're buying the team, not necessarily the assets or the customer base.
Right. Now, once you've acquired a business, the next crucial step is building your team, especially if your goal is to eventually step back from the day-to-day operations.
Right, you need to find the right people to run the show.
Exactly. And Sanchez emphasizes that you don't have to be the one working in the business every day. You can hire a competent operator to manage things for you.
Which frees you up to focus on the bigger picture.
Exactly. Now, to attract top talent, Sanchez suggests offering compensation packages that go beyond a standard salary.
So things like performance bonuses, equity in the company, longevity bonuses.
All right. You want to create a structure that incentivizes your team to perform at their best.
Now, when it comes to actually finding and hiring an operator, Sanchez recommends using your network crafting compelling job listings and having a structured interview process.
Yeah. You want to make sure you're asking the right questions to assess their skills, their experience, and their fit with the company culture.
So you've got your business, you've got your team. What happens next?
Well, Sanchez lays out a transition plan, starting with the first 60 days, which are all about learning the ropes of the business, documenting processes, and understanding how things work.
Okay, so it's like an immersion phase.
Exactly. Then from day 60 to 90, it's all about stabilizing and systematizing the business.
Just setting clear goals, establishing communication protocols, implementing regular team meetings.
Right. And she talks about the importance of Friday finances, which is basically reviewing your financials on a weekly basis.
So you're staying on top of your numbers and making sure the business is on track.
Exactly. Now, Sanchez also emphasizes the importance of cutting costs and improving operational efficiency.
So looking for areas where you can trim the fat and streamline processes.
Right. She talks about the importance of leveraging technology using tools like Google Workspace, Notion, Slack, Upwork, TriNet to automate tasks and improve communication.
And of course, you need to focus on boosting your marketing and sales.
Yeah, that's where the real growth comes from. And Sanchez provides a bunch of strategies for generating leads, acquiring customers, and increasing revenue.
Now, once you've got your business running smoothly, what's next?
Well, Sanchez talks about scaling your portfolio and eventually planning for your exit.
Okay, so the long-term vision.
Exactly. And she points out that most self-made billionaires own multiple businesses.
So it's not just about owning one successful business, it's about building a portfolio of assets.
Right. And when it comes to exiting your business, Sanchez emphasizes the importance of preparation. Less than 30% of small businesses actually sell successfully, so you need to plan ahead.
So what are some of the key steps to prepare your business for sale?
Well, she talks about simplifying your financials, documenting your processes, building a loyal employee base, and making sure the business can run without you.
So you're basically making the business as attractive as possible to potential buyers.
Exactly. And when it comes time to sell, your profitability will be the primary driver of your valuation.
So the more profitable your business is, the more you can sell it for.
Right. And she also recommends considering seller financing to attract more buyers.
So it's a similar concept to what we discussed earlier.
Exactly. And finally, she stresses the importance of choosing the right business broker, someone who has experience and a proven track record.
So you're not going through this process alone. You've got expert guidance.
Right. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's recap some of the key takeaways.
Okay.
Financial freedom can be achieved through business ownership. Main Street businesses, often overlooked, hold tremendous potential. Thorough due diligence is crucial. Creative financing options can make acquisition a reality, and scaling your holdings and planning for your exit are essential for long-term success.
So much good stuff in there. But I think the biggest takeaway for me is that there's more than one path to wealth.
Yeah. We often get caught up in the traditional narrative of working a 9-to-5, climbing the corporate ladder. But there are other options.
And this book really opens your eyes to those possibilities. It challenges you to rethink your assumptions about work and wealth.
Exactly. And for anyone who's felt frustrated or stuck in their current situation, it's a breath of fresh air. It shows you that there's another way, a way to build a future where you're in control of your time and your income.
So what's the next step for our listeners? What should they do after this deep dive?
Well, I'd say start by looking around your community with a fresh perspective. Think about those everyday businesses, the ones you might have dismissed before.
The dry cleaners, the car washes, the laundromats.
Exactly. And ask yourself, could one of these be my path to financial freedom? Could this be the business that changes my life?
Because sometimes the greatest opportunities are hidden in plain sight.
Absolutely. And if you've ever had a boss that made you want to pull your hair out, channel that frustration into something positive. Use it as fuel to build something better for yourself.
So take some time to consider your zone of genius, explore those boring businesses, and start thinking like an owner.
Because the world of Main Street businesses is full of untapped potential.
And who knows, maybe in future deep dives we'll explore specific industries or feature the stories of people who've successfully built their own Main Street empires.
That was good to me.
But until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep that entrepreneurial spirit burning.
You got it.